Photos of 2-year-old Zevaya reminds her heartbroken mother, Kirsten Watson, of the simple things she'll miss.
I give her baths, we lay together, we sleep together, and now I won't be able to do any of that anymore.
Zevaya's father, Flanagan, appeared in court for the first time this morning, 2 days after allegedly murdering the toddler.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around why. How could you do this to your little girl?
Chow Wen is a trauma therapist with the GEM Wellness and Counseling Service.
What an unthinkable tragedy that a child, a 2-year-old toddler, had to be weaponized as a result of domestic violence.
The sheriff's office looking into its overall response surrounding this case, including the chase and the events leading up to it, including when deputies responded to the family home last week.
This happened in a 5-day span, starting Wednesday night.
The criminal justice system, law enforcement, prosecutors, they are there to protect survivors. Protective orders are meant to protect you, not to hurt you. In this case, it appears the system has failed this woman.
It all began around 9:30 a.m. on March 20th, when a male picked up his 2-year-old daughter from a daycare center shortly after her mother dropped her off. He then drove with the child to her mother's job at a local Walmart, where he stormed in with his 2-year-old daughter, Zevaya Flanagan, walked up to her mother, and demanded that she gave him her cell phone along with the passcode. Once she complied, she attempted to grab her daughter out of his arms, but he stormed out of the Walmart. She immediately contacted police, who were able to track her cell phone to determine the location of the vehicle. The male would lead police on a 30-mile chase with their daughter inside of the vehicle. She was not strapped in a car seat or seatbelt. During this time, he would contact the child's mother and grandfather via FaceTime as he physically assaulted her and made threats to harm her if they did not provide him with the passcode to the phone. The car eventually would come to a stop on Stubner Airline Drive near Veterans Memorial Drive. The male was uninjured. However, 2-year-old Zevaya was in critical condition.
A child is in critical condition after deputies say her father led them on a chase with that little girl in the car. And that child had to be taken to the hospital by life flight after deputies pulled the girl and her father from a red Camaro following a chase and a brief standoff. Deputies say this whole thing started because the father threatened to hurt the child if the mother didn't give him her cell phone.
In her mind, she probably was just wondering, what did I do? What are you doing this to me for? I love you. Why are you hurting me?
Curtis Watson was hopeful things might end peacefully.
But then he showed me the lifeless corpse of my granddaughter. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and to have to go through that type of anguish and pain.
All I was trying to do was provide for my daughter and move on, and I guess he just didn't want that. Didn't want that for us.
2-year-old Zevaya Flanagan was taken to Memorial Hermann Hospital, where she was sadly succumbed to her injuries just a short time later. Officers are still trying to determine if her death was caused by blunt force trauma from her father or from the impact of the police chase. Officers immediately took 25-year-old Flanagan into custody after a SWAT standoff. Several law enforcement agencies, including the Houston Police Department and the Texas DPS, assisted in the incident. A look into his criminal history revealed that he was previously sentenced to 30 days in jail for physically assaulting his own brother, who has special needs. According to Zevaya's mother, in the week leading up to this incident, she contacted the police on 3 separate occasions about Flanagan, but she was told there was nothing that they could do. The two had gone their separate ways over the past few months, but he refused to let her go, refused to allow her to be happy without him. Instead, he used their 2-year-old daughter as a pawn to hurt her in the worst way possible. Her family says they hope more will be done in the future to protect other children and women in situations such as this.
Her face was just covered in blood. He hit her with something really hard. And then he called me on FaceTime, and he showed me that he choked her on FaceTime as I was on there. And I said, Trey, that's your daughter. That is your daughter. Stop. That is your daughter. She loves you. I care about her. You care about her. That is your daughter. And he told me his exact words was, You only love that man, so you did this to her.
Kirsten Watson tells Fox 26 she's still numb and in shock. Around 10 o'clock Monday morning, her child's father, identified by police as 25-year-old DeAndre Flanagan, stormed into her job at Walmart in North Harris County. He had their 2-year-old daughter, Zevaya Marie, who had just been dropped off at daycare, in his arms, and he began screaming at Watson.
He just wanted my phone. He's screaming at me, cursing me out, telling me, what's the passcode? Tell me the passcode or she's gonna get it. And I'm telling him the passcode, and I'm telling him over and over and over, but at the end of the day, I guess it just wasn't enough.
After he took off with Zevaya in hand, police say Flanagan took deputies on a 30-mile chase. The car eventually came to a stop on Stubner Airline Drive near Veterans Memorial, where officers took Flanagan into custody uninjured. But little Zevaya required CPR until life flight arrived. She died at the hospital.
She was just such a happy baby, and I just know she's at peace.
Watson says in the week leading up to this incident, she had to contact police on 3 different occasions about Flanagan, but she was told there was nothing they could do.
The first day he took my child, like I was giving her a bath in the tub. He stormed in, and he took her out the tub. She wasn't even dressed, and he just took her out the house and drove away in a car. We've been going our separate ways. And I let him be, but he couldn't let me be. He couldn't let me be happy. He couldn't let me move on with my life.
This family now sharing their story, hoping it helps someone else.
And I wonder about how many other Zevayas is around the world right now, around the United States right now, that's having the same problem. That's in the city, that's in the state.
It's my suspicion that Zevaya died due to strangulation, which would not be the result of any sort of blunt force impacts that she sustained in the car driving with the defendant.
Zevaya's mother says she was just trying to end things with Flanagan, but is now left without her only child as well.
25-year-old DeAndre Flanagan is charged with murder and being held at the Harris County Jail. He was scheduled to appear in court the very next day, but waived his right to do so. His bond was initially set at $1 million, but was soon increased to $2 million once he appeared in court, with some even arguing that it should be raised to $5 million. He could be facing capital murder charges pending the results of an autopsy. The case remains ongoing.
I want to run through the sequence of events as we know them. I want to emphasize that all of this remains preliminary, as there were a lot of moving parts. A lot happened earlier this morning. And so I want to just be clear that it's still preliminary, and we'll try to update as we go along. What we know is that approximately 10:15 a.m., an adult male went to a private daycare facility, removed his 2-year-old daughter. It's our understanding that he's the biological father. We haven't confirmed that. That's the initial information we received. From there, he proceeded to go to a retail store pretty close by, where he confronted the mother of the child and began making threats, asking for her phone, her passcode, with child in hand, and basically threatening to hurt the child if she did not turn those items over. She complied. She made an attempt to try to rescue her daughter from his stronghold, but she was unable to do so. At that point, we're told that the adult male struck her possibly a couple times to the face, and continued to flee the location from that retail store, again, still with child in tow, and fleeing the location with her phone and his phone as well. Our deputies were dispatched to that location. At that point, they quickly began getting information, trying to obviously now determine what happened. Now the situation has escalated, knowing that there's a child involved and possibly could be in harm's way. They were able to immediately, or pretty close to immediately start tracking where the phone might be. The suspect in the red Camaro was located near the intersection of Greens Road and North Freeway, approximately in the Greens Point area. Other agencies began hearing the radio traffic, and thanks to the quick action, again, of other partners, the Houston Police Department, Texas Department of Public Safety, all ascended into the area to try to assist. A pursuit occurred at that point from that location. It's several miles from here, several minutes from this location, so pursuit did occur. It's my understanding it took place both along the North Freeway and then here along Stubner Airline as well, as units were again trying to devise a strategy to detain the suspect that was in the vehicle with the child. At some point, we believe the mom was able to possibly FaceTime on and off with the suspect, just trying to get him to stop and just having some brief conversations trying to resolve the situation. The male wasn't having it, so he continued northbound here on Stubner Airline past 1960. At some point, as patrol vehicles were now in the area, he was able to swerve, jumped into St. Dunstan's Episcopal Church, and the car finally came to a stop. We're very grateful again that law enforcement was able to ascend pretty quickly. HPD SWAT was in the area. Their air support was also in the area. And then our units began arriving as well. By that point, there was a standoff. The male was in the vehicle. We later learned the child was still in the vehicle as well. One of our negotiators was able to establish verbal communication just briefly from near the vehicle, trying to ascertain the condition, especially of the child. And at that point, during the course of that investigation, they determined that the child was possibly in pretty bad shape. And so that's the information that was developed so quickly, working in tandem between HPD SWAT, our units that were here on site with our negotiators as well. They were able to launch a proactive operation using a distraction device with HPD, and then we were able to put an assault team as well to go and extract both the child and the adult male. The adult male was taken into custody without injury or without incident, and the child was removed, and immediately EMS began providing life-saving measures at that point. The child was in very serious, critical condition, so CPR was administered almost the entire time until Life Flight arrived and has since taken the toddler, who we're told is 2 years old, 2-year-old black female. And again, she's in very critical condition. I have not received an update since her arrival at the hospital, so our prayers above everything are with the child. Very horrific situation out here. A lot of things transpired, like I said, and so our biggest hope is that the child somehow pulls through. That's our biggest thing. Everybody was obviously impacted anytime that there's a child involved. So that's the preliminary information we have. We believe that the suspect is a black male suspect in his mid-20s. Again, he's been taken under custody. We're told he's a biological father. Obviously, there's a relationship between him and the adult female, but we don't know if they're legally married or a dating relationship. We haven't established that yet. That'll be part of our investigation. We'll be out here for several hours as, again, there were a lot of moving pieces to this involving a pursuit and the initial calls for service, and then ultimately when things came to an end. So that'll be part of our investigation. Want to thank again the Houston Police Department, DPS, Champions Fire Department, ESD 11 as well, the church where everything came to an end. And so there's a lot of folks to be grateful for, and we just hope the child pulls through. Briefly in Spanish, and then I'll answer questions. Brevemente, esta mañana, como las 10:15 de la mañana, un sujeto adulto fue a una guardería donde tienen niños. Se llevó una niña de 2 años de edad, una niña afroamericana de 2 años. Nos dicen que es su hija del tipo. El tipo fue entonces a una tienda donde trabaja la mamá de la niña, la comenzó a amenazar, le pidió su número de teléfono y el código para el teléfono. También le dio algunos golpes a la mujer, que es la mamá de la niña. También amenazó a la niña. Y después es cuando lo pudieron localizar, que estaba cerca de la calle de Greens Road y el 45 en el área de Greens Point. Agentes con el departamento de Houston, los oficiales estatales, los helicópteros y todo le comenzaron a dar búsqueda, comenzaron a perseguirlo con las patrullas y al fin llegó a terminar aquí en la calle Stubner Airline, enfrente de una iglesia. Está en un Red Camaro. Pudieron determinar los agentes aquí de que la niña estaba herida, no sabían qué grave, y decidieron entonces hacer una ofensiva contra el carro para tratar de rescatar a la niña. Lo pudieron arrestar al individuo, no tenía nada de heridas y la niña sí estaba muy grave. No sabemos qué extensos son sus heridas, pero sí son graves. No tenía pulso al principio, entonces vamos a hacer todo lo posible. Los doctores que lo están tratando, esperamos que la puedan rescatar y salvar su vida, esa pobre Ángel. Entonces es lo que estamos aquí, vamos a estar aquí por varias horas con una investigación extensiva en este momento. And I just want to just reference again that our negotiator was able to establish once they were there and when they were establishing communications with him to try to resolve this as peacefully as possible, that the child was injured in somehow, according to the suspect who conveyed that to them and wasn't being responsive at that point. And so that's when we had to take further action at that point. Any questions? The initial information that we received again from the suspect was apparently that the child had, I'm paraphrasing here, had jumped around the car, during everything that had transpired, possibly struck her head and had bounced around. So I'm assuming probably didn't have a seatbelt or anything, and basically said she wasn't being responsive. So that's the information that we determined, we believe, from the suspect himself. Yes.
He physically didn't hurt her.
We don't know. That'll be part of, obviously, the main thing right now is trying to preserve life, and then we'll determine the seriousness of the injuries. There did appear to be some trauma to the body, but we don't know, again, if it was from bouncing around or what happened. But again, all those were, reckless decisions by the suspect in putting that precious child in a dangerous situation like that and taking her from the daycare center. He's the one that prompted everything that happened here today.
Were there any weapons found?
It's one of, he went to her workplace, the store where she works at. I don't have that store with me. I believe it was a Walmart store where she worked, where he approached her, went to her job. I believe she had just recently dropped off the child, or someone had dropped off the child at the daycare, and it was soon after, sometime after 10:15 more or less, was when he came to her place of work and confronted her there.
So he doesn't have legal custody in any way?
I don't know the connection at this point, other than we're told he's a biological father, but we don't know if they're going through, if they were estranged or there was some type of divorce or separation. We don't know how that went down, or what the dynamics were involving the family.
Sheriff, family said that there was an incident last week where he took the child and law enforcement was called, and both deputies and HPD responded to that, and they said that because it was the father, there was nothing they could do. Can you confirm, do you have any information on what had happened last week, and why was he just let go even though he may have taken the child?
I cannot confirm. That's the first time I hear that point. That'll be an extensive investigation from here to kind of determine what happened before. It's not uncommon sometimes, especially when there's estranged couples or divorces going on, that law enforcement gets called out. But, again, sometimes it falls into being a civil or family matter. It just depends the nature of the information we received, and there's possible threats to the child. Sometimes we do not get involved, but we receive calls for service to locations regarding family disputes and stuff, and so a lot of it just depends if the child was in any danger. We don't know what information was conveyed, but that's the first I hear about that. We'll try to track that down and get more information about that previous incident. On West FM 1960. I don't have the exact address. I don't have the name. We'll get it. Yeah.
Was there a weapon found?
We haven't gone into the vehicle any further. We're containing the scene so that our crime scene investigators can process it more fully. So at this point, I don't know. I have not been in the vehicle, and nothing was conveyed to me. Everybody's just securing the scene at this point. I don't know if he was on the list of authorized persons. We're told he's a biological father. We haven't been told if there was a call for service at that point. From the daycare center, we received a call. It's my understanding from the her workplace minutes after, when he arrived there and assaulted her and showed up with the child. But I'm not sure anything further as far as who was on the list to pick up or anything like that.
Does the suspect have any kind of family assault charges pending on him? Any kind of record?
I don't know if his record or any again past history involving him or anything. I believe he's a black male, mid-20s, but I don't have the information in terms of any record or anything. That'll be part of our investigation to see how we got to this point.
I guess how horrible is it that someone just uses their child to manipulate someone? It happens, I feel like, a lot. We see a lot of domestic violence incidents kind of like this.
I mean, just awful situation as a father, as just a human being, for anyone to use a child, a precious, defenseless child of 2 years old. It just broke my heart to see her, injured in that condition. It just, I can't just fathom anybody using a child, and apparently when he confronted the adult, I guess the mother, was that he was already threatening to possibly hurt the child, or was going to hurt the child as well if his demands were met. So again, just horrific chain of events and circumstances. Our main thing right now is to just hopefully the child can pull through.
What did he want? What were his demands?
I don't know what was going on or what prompted him to do what he did today. I'm assuming, being that there's a confrontation with the mother of a child, there may be some type of stemming, as I mentioned earlier in my post, from family violence to some extent, and in this case possibly using the child for leverage. So we don't know what the dynamics were, what was happening in the relationship. We don't know exactly what his needs or wants were at this point. Chief, did you want to add anything from?
No, I just want to thank
Chief Harden.
I just want to thank Harris County for their partnership. As the sheriff mentioned, we partner in many different ways. Both calls for service patrol, we serve on several task forces together, and our tactical teams are fortunate enough to have a very close relationship and spend a lot of time training together, both for large events and for scenes like this. And it's sad that scenes like this occur and they require tactical action at times, but it is a benefit to have such a great partnership with them and our partners at DPS to do our best to bring scenes like this to as peaceful a conclusion as we can. So I just want to thank the Sheriff's Department at DPS for their assistance and in our partnership today.
Thank you, Chief.
What kind of charges is this guy going to face?
I mean, I don't know. We haven't even gotten to that point. We're still in the early stages. The main thing was just to make sure everything concluded, and obviously there's been a lot of disruption out here in the neighborhood, and so just we'll try to kind of piece everything together. I'm sure there's a number of different charges that are applicable. Again, a lot of it will just stem to the extent of the injuries to the child and endangering the child, which you're looking already at a possible at a felony charge at minimum there, and the other stuff that happened, the assault of the mother, and again, we don't know what is. Was he authorized to take the child? Is there a court order? There's a lot of different things that we'll have to unpack with the district attorney's office that ultimately will make that decision. The suspect will be transported, I believe, to jail. I was not told of any injuries. He did not sustain any injuries. He was arrested without incident. And so I also wanted to thank Lifelight as well it's a tremendous service that we take for granted sometimes here in our community. They make so many different scenes with the number of serious crashes and just overall, violence that occurs in a region this big and busy. And so, they were here as well. La niña, no sabemos qué extensas son las heridas de la niña, solamente sabemos que estaba muy grave. Una niña de 2 años, entonces la llevaron por helicóptero al hospital y esperamos que la puedan hacer un milagro y que la puedan salvar. Sobre todo es la meta más importante en este momento. No sabemos, no hemos podido revisar el carro en detalle porque va a ser parte de nuestra investigación. Tenemos que mantener el cuidado de todo y apenas están llegando los investigadores para investigar. I do not know. I don't want to speculate for him, but again, just looking at him taking the child to then approaching her with child in hand, no one should have to be placed in that kind of fear or threat at work or anywhere. And again, just speaks to the awful scourge of domestic violence in whatever level, and ultimately we have a child here that's literally fighting for her life, that was CPR in progress when she was taken, and that's a real shame that we continue to see that. And as you stated, kids are in the middle of this, and we got to do better. Situation in what part of it?
Well, just in domestic violence situation.
Yeah.
If someone shows up, they have a child or a child, and it gets heated, how should you handle something?
Yeah, well, obviously the main thing at that point is to try to de-escalate as best you can. She tried to comply with his demands, but, he still struck her and punched her is what I'm told. And so, there's a lot of things that are happening at that point. And so, it's hard to speculate exactly or kind of, think of what tactics to use, if you will. The main thing we always say is call authorities as soon as possible. Let us hopefully get involved. And before it ever gets there, obviously, is to seek help as best you can in terms of there's counseling, Houston Area Women's Center, the Bridge, Family Time. There's so many resources that we do have. And it's very difficult, and these situations tend to escalate over time. And so you just got to be very careful because you never know when things are going to, they're powder kegs, literally, they're powder kegs. And we saw here today where, again, just a nice morning, 10 in the morning, it's not at nighttime or inside someone's house, going to a daycare, going to a place of work. These things can happen at any point. And, you think, hopefully, that no one would ever hurt their own child, but, at least this day and age, anything's possible.
So he walked into Walmart and punched her?
We confronted her about the phone, and then at some point in that interaction, we're told that he struck her, and then ended up fleeing with her phone, and then the child still in hand.
You're not sure if that his vehicle or is that
I'm not sure if he's the owner of the vehicle. It's a red Camaro. I don't know his connection to the vehicle or not. Okay, thank you very much.